The busy shopping district of downtown Portland was filled with the usual Saturday afternoon crowd when 4-year-old Emma suddenly broke free from her father's hand and ran toward a complete stranger. What happened next would shatter everything. David Chen thought he knew about his daughter and challenged the very foundations of what we consider possible in this world. Emma had been walking peacefully beside her father when she spotted a woman in her 60s browsing through books at a sidewalk vendor. Without warning, the little girl's face lit up with pure joy and recognition. She ran directly to the woman, arms outstretched, calling out, "Mommy, Mommy," in a voice filled with desperate longing and unmistakable love. The woman, Margaret Sullivan, was startled and confused as this unknown child threw her arms around her legs, hugging her tightly and refusing to let go. David rushed over, his face flushed with embarrassment, apologizing profusely for his daughter's behavior. He tried to gently pull Emma away, explaining that this wasn't her mother, but the child clung to Margaret with surprising strength. Emma looked up at Margaret with tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking as she said she had missed her so much and had been looking for her everywhere. The intensity of the child's emotion was overwhelming. Margaret felt something stir deep within her chest, an inexplicable connection she couldn't understand or explain. David continued apologizing, explaining that Emma's mother had died in a car accident 2 years ago, when Emma was only 2 years old. He mentioned that his daughter sometimes called strangers "Mommy," though never with such intensity or apparent recognition. Margaret knelt down to Emma's level, gently asking why she thought Margaret was her mother. Emma's response sent chills through both adults. The little girl said that Margaret was her old mommy from before she came to live with her current daddy. She explained that she used to live in a different house with Margaret, and she had been waiting to see her again. The child's matter-of-fact tone made her words even more unsettling. Margaret felt compelled to ask Emma what she remembered about their supposed life together. The 4-year-old's answer made Margaret's hands tremble. Emma described a small, yellow house with a red door and a garden where they grew tomatoes and sunflowers together. She mentioned a cat named Whiskers who liked to sleep in the sunny spot by the kitchen window. The color drained from Margaret's face as Emma continued describing details of a house Margaret had lived in more than 40 years ago. The child mentioned the creaky third step on the staircase, the way the bathroom door didn't close properly unless you lifted the handle slightly, and the wind chimes on the back porch that played different notes depending on which way the wind blew. David watched in amazement as his daughter provided increasingly specific details about a place she had never been. Emma described the wallpaper in the kitchen with tiny roses, the rocking chair by the front window where Margaret used to read, and the small crack in the living room ceiling that looked like a butterfly if you stared at it long enough. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper as she confirmed each detail Emma provided. The yellow house had been her first home after getting married in 1979. She had lived there for only 3 years before her husband's job required them to move across the country. They had indeed grown tomatoes and sunflowers in the backyard, garden, and their cat Whiskers had been her constant companion. The emotional impact of Emma's revelations was overwhelming for Margaret. She had lived in that house during some of the happiest years of her life. She and her husband had been trying to start a family, but after 3 years of unsuccessful attempts and 2 heartbreaking miscarriages, they had moved away to start, fresh somewhere new. The house held memories of dreams that never came true, and a child she never had the chance to hold. Emma seemed to sense Margaret's emotional state, and reached up to touch her face gently, saying she remembered how sad Margaret had been, and that she had wanted to make her feel better. The child spoke about sensing Margaret's longing for a baby, and wishing she could have stayed longer to be the daughter Margaret had always wanted. David found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about life and death as he watched. The profound connection between his daughter and this stranger. Emma had never spoken about past lives or other families, yet her knowledge of Margaret's former home was undeniably accurate and impossibly detailed. Margaret asked Emma if she remembered anything else about their time together. The little girl nodded and described Margaret's habit of humming lullabies while doing dishes, her collection of ceramic angels on the mantelpiece, and the way she always checked the locks twice before going to bed. She even mentioned Margaret's fear of thunderstorms and how she would hide under blankets during bad weather. These intimate details that only Margaret could have known brought tears to the older woman's eyes. She had never shared these personal quirks with anyone, not even her husband. Yet this 4-year-old child was describing them with the familiarity of someone who had lived with her for years. Emma continued her revelations, mentioning that Margaret used to talk to her even though she couldn't see her. The child explained that she had been there, listening and watching, wanting desperately to comfort Margaret during her saddest moments. She described floating around the house, trying to make her presence known by moving small objects or creating gentle breezes. Margaret gasped as she remembered the strange occurrences in that house that she had dismissed as her imagination. Doors would open on their own. Pictures would shift slightly on walls, and she often felt as though someone was watching her with love and protection. Her husband had teased her about having a friendly ghost, never knowing how close to the truth he might have been. The child's knowledge extended beyond the physical details of the house, to the emotional landscape of Margaret's life during that period. Emma spoke about Margaret's weekly visits to the doctor, her hope and disappointment each month, and her secret prayers for a child. She described Margaret's ritual of setting up a nursery in the spare bedroom, only to pack everything away again after each failed pregnancy. David struggled to process what he was witnessing. His scientific mind searched for rational explanations, but Emma's detailed knowledge seemed to transcend anything that could be explained by coincidence or research. The emotional authenticity of her connection with Margaret was undeniable, and the specific details she provided were far too numerous and obscure to be mere guesswork. Margaret found herself asking Emma about the miscarriages, something she had never discussed with anyone outside her immediate family. The child's response was both heartbreaking and healing. Emma explained that she had tried to come to Margaret twice but couldn't stay because the timing wasn't right. She said she had to wait until she was ready, and until Margaret had learned what she needed to learn. The conversation took an even more profound turn when Emma described the day Margaret and her husband moved away from the yellow house. The child said she had watched them pack their belongings and had felt Margaret's sadness at leaving behind her dreams of motherhood. Emma explained that she had followed Margaret for a while, trying to find a way to comfort her, but eventually realized she needed to wait for the right time and circumstances to enter her life. Margaret's voice shook as she shared that after moving away, she and her husband had eventually divorced. The stress of infertility and failed attempts at parenthood had strained their marriage beyond repair. She had spent decades wondering what her life would have been like if she had been able to have the child she so desperately wanted. Emma looked at Margaret with ancient eyes that seemed far too wise for her 4-year-old face. She told Margaret that she had been meant to be her daughter, but in a different way than either of them had expected. The child explained that souls sometimes connect across time and circumstances, and that love doesn't always follow the conventional patterns that people expect. The little girl's philosophical insights amazed both adults. Emma spoke about souls choosing their paths and families before being born, and about how sometimes what seems like loss or failure is actually preparation for something greater. She told Margaret that her longing for a child had created a spiritual connection that transcended normal understanding. David found himself deeply moved by his daughter's wisdom and compassion. He had always known Emma was special, but her ability to provide comfort and insight to this stranger revealed depths of understanding that seemed impossible for someone so young. He began to wonder if his daughter's connection to Margaret was part of a larger spiritual purpose. Margaret asked Emma if she remembered choosing David as her father in this life. The child nodded and explained that she had watched David and his wife Sarah from the spirit world, knowing that they would need her after Sarah's death. She said she had chosen to come to them because David would need help healing his grief, and because she had promises to keep to both her earthly parents and her spiritual mother. The revelation that Emma had somehow known about Sarah's impending death and had chosen to incarnate as their daughter to help with the healing process left David speechless. His wife had died unexpectedly in a car accident, and Emma's presence had indeed been his salvation during the darkest period of his life. Emma turned back to Margaret and said she had been searching for her ever since she was old enough to walk and talk. She explained that she had felt Margaret's continued sadness and loneliness over the years, and had been waiting for the right moment to make contact. The child said she had prayed every night for God to help her find her other mommy so she could tell her that she was loved and remembered. The emotional impact of Emma's words on Margaret was transformative. For decades, she had carried the pain of childlessness and the belief that her life had been somehow incomplete or failed. Emma's recognition and love validated feelings and experiences she had thought were lost forever. David suggested they sit down at a nearby cafe to continue their conversation in private. As they walked together, Emma naturally took Margaret's hand, chattering about how happy she was to finally see her again. The bond between them was immediate and undeniable, as if they were reconnecting after a long separation rather than meeting for the first time. At the cafe, Margaret shared more details about her life in the Yellow House, and Emma continued to provide accurate confirmations and additional memories. The child remembered the taste of Margaret's homemade chocolate chip cookies, the way the house smelled like lavender and vanilla, and the sound of rain on the metal roof during summer storms. Emma also shared memories that Margaret had forgotten until the child mentioned them. She described a small music box that played Für Elise and sat on Margaret's dresser, a wind chime made of shells that Margaret's sister had brought back from a beach vacation, and a particular rocking motion Margaret used when she sat in her favorite chair reading. The conversation revealed layers of connection that seemed to span decades and transcend the normal boundaries of time and space. Emma's memories weren't just of physical details, but of emotional states, daily routines, and intimate moments that could only have been experienced by someone who lived in that house and shared Margaret's life. David found himself documenting the conversation on his phone, realizing that this encounter was unlike anything he had ever experienced or heard about. The specificity and emotional authenticity of Emma's memories suggested something far beyond childhood imagination or coincidence. Margaret asked Emma if she had any messages for her, anything she wanted her to know. The little girl's response was profound in its simplicity and wisdom. Emma told Margaret that she had always been a wonderful mother, even without a physical child to care for. She explained that Margaret's love and maternal energy had existed in the spiritual realm and had helped many souls, including Emma herself. The child continued by saying that Margaret's childlessness hadn't been a failure or punishment, but rather a different kind of purpose. Emma explained that some souls are meant to be spiritual mothers to many, rather than physical mothers to one, and that Margaret's journey had prepared her to understand and accept love in all its forms. Emma's words provided healing that decades of therapy and spiritual searching had not been able to achieve. Margaret felt a profound sense of completion and understanding that transformed her perception of her entire life journey. The child's recognition and love validated experiences and feelings she had carried alone for so many years. As their time together continued, Emma shared more memories and insights that deepened the mystery of their connection. She spoke about watching Margaret from the spirit world, learning about love and patience and hope by observing her daily life. The child explained that souls in the spirit realm often choose teachers and guides among the living, and Margaret had unknowingly served as both for Emma. David realized that his daughter's unusual wisdom and maturity might be explained by her spiritual connection to Margaret and her experiences in the spirit world before incarnating. Emma's ability to provide comfort and insight to others had always amazed him, but now he understood that she might be drawing on memories and knowledge from beyond this lifetime. The encounter with Margaret also explained some of Emma's behaviors that David had found puzzling. The child often spoke about missing someone she couldn't name, and she had an unusual affinity for older women that went beyond normal childhood friendliness. Emma had always seemed to be searching for something, or someone, and her meeting with Margaret appeared to fulfill that deep longing. Margaret asked if she could stay in contact with Emma and David, explaining that the child's recognition had filled a void in her life that she hadn't fully realized existed. David agreed immediately, sensing that this connection was meant to be part of their lives going forward. Emma clapped her hands with joy at the prospect of maintaining their relationship. She told Margaret that she had always known they would find each other again, and that their love would continue in a new form. The child's certainty and happiness about their reunion was infectious and deeply moving. As the afternoon drew to a close, the three of them exchanged contact information and made plans to meet again soon. Emma hugged Margaret tightly, telling her how much she loved her and how happy she was that they didn't have to be apart anymore. The older woman was openly crying, overwhelmed by the unexpected gift of this spiritual daughter's love and recognition. The walk back to their cars was filled with wonder and anticipation for future meetings. Emma chattered excitedly about all the things she wanted to show Margaret and all the stories she wanted to share about their time together in the spirit world. Her enthusiasm was balanced by moments of profound wisdom that continued to amaze both adults. David reflected on how this chance encounter had transformed all three of their lives in a single afternoon. Emma's recognition of Margaret had validated the child's spiritual insights and provided healing for a woman who had carried decades of unexpressed grief. The connection also gave David a deeper understanding of his daughter's purpose and the mysterious ways that love transcends normal boundaries. Margaret drove home that evening with a sense of completion and purpose she hadn't felt in decades. Emma's recognition had transformed her understanding of her life's journey and provided the maternal connection she had always longed for, though in a form she never could have imagined. The story of Emma and Margaret's reunion would continue to unfold in the weeks and months that followed, as their relationship deepened and provided healing and joy for both. Emma's memories of their spiritual connection continued to provide insights into the nature of love, loss, and the mysterious ways that souls connect across time and circumstances. Their encounter serves as a powerful reminder that love transcends physical boundaries and that the connections we make in life may extend far beyond our current understanding. Emma's recognition of her old mom in a stranger challenges our assumptions about family, memory, and the true nature of the bonds that tie us together across lifetimes. The profound healing that occurred for both Margaret and Emma through their reunion suggests that some encounters are divinely orchestrated to provide exactly what each soul needs for its growth and healing. Their story continues to inspire questions about the nature of consciousness, memory, and the possibility that love truly is eternal. If this incredible story of spiritual recognition and healing across lifetimes has touched your heart and opened your mind to new possibilities about the nature of love and connection, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your Pratyurva support helps us share more amazing stories that remind us love transcends all boundaries and that we are all connected in ways we're only beginning to understand.